a rancher on the brink of losing everything, a mysterious hiker with a secret that would shake Silicon Valley to its core, and a chance encounter during the worst wildfire season in decades that would forever alter both their lives. Meet Emma Callahan, whose simple act of courage would not only save a stranger from certain death, but eventually grant her access to technological innovations worth billions that powerful forces would kill to control. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The scorching summer sun beat down mercilessly as Emma Callahan surveyed the parched landscape of her struggling cattle ranch. At 34, the third-generation rancher had never witnessed a drought as severe as this one, or a financial situation as dire. 3 consecutive years of water shortages followed by devastating wildfires had decimated her grazing lands, leaving her with mounting debts and dwindling options. "Just need to make it through summer," Emma muttered to herself, wiping sweat from her brow as she climbed into her dust-covered pickup truck. The bank meeting that morning had been brutal. Without substantial collateral or a miracle rainfall, Raven Creek Ranch, 200 acres that had been in her family since her grandfather returned from the Korean War, would likely face foreclosure by fall. The local radio crackled with warnings about the approaching fire danger. "This is shaping up to be the worst wildfire season in 40 years, folks. If you don't have an evacuation plan already, you should be making one now. Emergency services are stretched thin, and many mountain trails will soon be closed." Emma had planned to be back at the ranch long before the worst of the day's heat, but the loan officer's unexpectedly thorough questions had delayed her. The news wasn't good. Without substantial collateral or a miracle turnaround, the bank would likely foreclose by autumn. As she navigated the increasingly hazy mountain road, visibility deteriorating with each passing mile, Emma noticed something unusual: fresh scuff marks and disturbed gravel veering off the road and down the steep embankment toward Eagle Canyon. Most would have driven past, especially with the air quality worsening and temperature climbing, but something made Emma pull over. She reached for her wide-brimmed hat and water bottle, then stepped out into the oppressive heat. "Hello?" she called, carefully making her way down the rocky slope, dust clouding with each step. "Anybody down there?" At first, she saw nothing but swirling dust and scattered rocks. Then her gaze caught movement, a figure half hidden among the boulders where a hiker had apparently fallen from the rim trail above. Inside the narrow canyon, a woman lay crumpled against the rocks, blood trickling from a gash on her leg and another on her forehead. The hiker, perhaps in her 30s with an athletic build and expensive outdoor gear, was semi-conscious and clearly disoriented. Emma noted the woman's high-end equipment and unusual composure despite her injury's quality. Hiking boots beneath technical clothing that seemed almost too pristine for serious trail use. "Hey, you're going to be okay," Emma said, kneeling to check for additional injuries. "I'm going to get you out of here." With considerable effort, Emma helped the injured woman to her feet. As she did, the stranger murmured incoherently something that sounded like "prototype" and "secure," repeated several times. "Hospital's 40 miles away, and I'm not sure we'd make it with these road conditions," Emma explained, though she doubted the woman could fully comprehend. "My ranch is just 7 miles down the road. I'll get you patched up, and we can call for help from there." As Emma maneuvered her truck back onto the highway, now barely visible beneath the thickening haze of distant wildfires, she noticed something unusual. The injured woman carried no identification, no wallet, no phone. Nothing that might identify her. Her only possession was a strange device, unlike anything Emma had ever seen, a slim metal object resembling a cross between a thumb drive and a key fob with an unusual display embedded in its surface. "Who are you, friend?" Emma wondered aloud. glancing at her semi-conscious passenger as they crawled through the worsening conditions. 20 minutes later, Emma pulled up to her farmhouse, a two-story structure built by her grandfather in the 1950s and maintained, with increasingly limited resources over the decades. The barn and outbuildings were barely visible through the haze, which was now so thick it seemed to erase the world beyond her headlights. With considerable effort, she managed to get the stranger inside and onto the living room couch. The woman remained dazed but stable as Emma cleaned and bandaged the head wound as best she could. Her ranch first aid kit had seen plenty of use over the years, but she worried this situation called for more medical care than she could provide. When she tried her landline, the connection was dead, likely from the fires affecting nearby infrastructure. Her satellite internet showed no connectivity. They were completely isolated. "Looks like it's just you and me until this passes," Emma told the barely conscious woman, building up the air conditioning against the oppressive heat that penetrated even the thick walls of the old house. As the day deepened and the air quality worsened outside, Emma periodically checked on her mysterious guest. Around sunset, while mixing electrolyte solution in the kitchen, she noticed something that had escaped her attention earlier: a small, unusual scar behind the woman's right ear, perfectly straight and about an inch long, unlike a typical injury. Curious, Emma examined the strange device she'd found in the woman's pocket. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't a conventional drive at all, but something more sophisticated, with what looked like a miniature holographic display embedded in its handle. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Emma's border collie, Blue, normally friendly to everyone, maintained a strange vigilance near the stranger, not aggressive but unusually alert. It was as if the dog sensed something extraordinary about their visitor. "What do you think, Blue? Who have we brought home?" Emma asked, scratching the dog's ears while brewing coffee to help stay awake. Emma's gaze fell on an old photo on the refrigerator herself in search and rescue gear during her years, volunteering with the county emergency services before returning to take over the family ranch after her father's accident. Something about the unconscious woman's composure reminded her of the tech executives she'd sometimes encountered during those mountain rescues, that indefinable presence of someone accustomed to power and responsibility. What Emma Callahan couldn't know as she settled into her grandfather's old armchair for the night was that 1,200 miles away, in San Francisco, emergency protocols had been activated across multiple corporate security teams. In a secure underground facility beneath an unassuming office building, private security personnel were tracking the last known GPS coordinates of their missing executive. The stranger on Emma's couch was not simply a lost hiker caught in hazardous conditions, and the device in Emma's possession, now placed casually on the kitchen counter, would soon become the focus of one of the most intensive private search operations in recent history. The wildfire that had trapped them together would be long remembered in the region, not for its record destruction, but for what it revealed when the smoke finally cleared. The morning light filtered weakly through dust-covered windows as Emma Callahan awoke with a start, momentarily disoriented to find herself in her grandfather's armchair rather than her bed. The events of the previous day came rushing back as her gaze fell upon the stranger, now sleeping peacefully on her living room couch. Outside, the wildfire conditions had worsened overnight, leaving behind a transformed landscape. Ash fell like gray snow, blanketing everything in sight and effectively sealing them off from the outside world. The rural roads wouldn't be cleared or deemed safe for days, and even Emma's ranch hands, the few she could still afford to employ, had been advised to stay in town until conditions improved. "Morning, Blue," Emma greeted her border collie, who had maintained his vigil beside the couch throughout the night. The dog wagged his tail but didn't abandon his post, eyes still fixed on their unexpected guest. Emma checked her satellite phone again, still no signal. The fire must have damaged one of the transmission towers. Her landline remained dead as well, confirming her suspicion that they were completely isolated until emergency services cleared the roads and restored communications. As she prepared a simple breakfast of coffee and oatmeal, Emma heard movement from the living room. The stranger was finally regaining full consciousness. "Take it easy," Emma advised, approaching cautiously as the woman's eyes fluttered open sharp, alert eyes that seemed to instantly assess their surroundings despite the injury. "You had a nasty fall yesterday. I found you in Eagle Canyon and brought you to my ranch since the hospital was too far in these conditions." The woman's hand immediately went to her jacket pocket, her expression shifting from confusion to controlled alarm when she found it empty. "Looking for this?" Emma asked, holding up the unusual electronic device. "It was the only thing in your pockets. No wallet, no phone, no ID. Made me a bit curious about who I brought into my home." The stranger's eyes narrowed, studying Emma with an intensity that was almost uncomfortable. "Thank you for your assistance," she finally said, her voice surprisingly steady and authoritative despite her condition. "My name is Sophia Chun. I'd appreciate the return of my property and access to a phone." Something about the way she delivered this information struck Emma as rehearsed. During her search and rescue days, Emma had encountered enough corporate executives to recognize certain patterns: the careful balance of gratitude and authority, the immediate request for communication, the lack of surprise at having no identification. "Well, Sophia, I'm Emma Callahan. You're welcome to your device, but I'm afraid phones are a problem. Landlines are down, and there's no cell service. We're pretty much cut off until the fire crews clear the roads, which could be a while." Emma handed over the device but maintained a cautious distance. "There's coffee and oatmeal in the kitchen if you're up for it." As Sophia slowly sat up, wincing slightly from what were likely bruised ribs from the fall, Emma noticed her taking inventory of her surroundings with practiced efficiency, noting exits, windows, potential resources, exactly as Emma had been trained to do in uncertain situations during her search and rescue days. "Search and rescue?" Emma asked casually, pouring 2 cups of coffee. A slight hesitation. "Good eye. I've done some wilderness training courses. County search and rescue for 5 years, Emma replied. Did dozens of missions before coming back to take over the family ranch when my father was injured in a riding accident. She gestured around the modest farmhouse. Not exactly the career I planned, but family comes first. Something in Sophia's expression shifted at this, a momentary softening that seemed genuine amid the careful control. I understand family obligations, she said quietly, accepting the offered coffee. As they ate breakfast in what might have appeared to an observer as casual conversation, Emma recognized they were engaged in a delicate dance, Sophia providing just enough information to seem cooperative, while revealing nothing of substance. Emma asking just enough questions to signal she wasn't entirely buying the story, but wasn't hostile either. Sophia claimed to be an environmental consultant, hiking to assess drought conditions for a client when she lost her footing on the rim trail. The lack of identification she explained as a theft at her last hotel wallet and phone taken from her room while she was at dinner, but the thieves had overlooked the device in her jacket. Valuable device? Emma asked, noting how Sophia had immediately secured it in a pocket out of sight. Just proprietary environmental monitoring equipment, came the practiced response. Company property, nothing particularly exciting. The conversation might have continued in this careful pattern indefinitely, had fate not intervened in the form of a mechanical noise outside. The unmistakable sound of helicopter rotors approaching through the ash-filled sky. Blue began barking excitedly, rushing to the window where, sure enough, a sleek black helicopter was descending toward the open field beyond Emma's barn. More telling than the helicopter itself was Sophia's reaction, a complex mixture of relief and what appeared to be resignation, as if a chapter was closing. Looks like your ride is here, Emma observed dryly. Must be some environmental consulting firm to send a helicopter for their missing employee during a state emergency. Sophia met her gaze directly for the first time. Emma, I owe you my life, and I won't insult your intelligence with more fabrications. That helicopter isn't from my consulting firm. It's likely from Chun Innovations Security Division. Chun Innovations? Emma repeated, watching as three figures in tactical gear emerged from the helicopter, moving with the unmistakable precision of private security personnel. The tech company? I need to ask for your discretion about a few things, Sophia continued, urgently as the figures began making their way toward the farmhouse. The device, for instance. It would be better if you didn't mention finding it. And why would I do that? Emma asked, standing by the window with her arms crossed. Sophia sighed, a decision visibly forming behind her eyes. Because I'm not actually an environmental consultant, and that's not actually a rescue team. Then who are you? I'm Sophia Chun, Chief Innovation Officer at Chun Innovations and daughter of James Chun, the company's founder. Before Emma could respond, a firm knock came at the door. Blue's barking intensified, and Emma felt the situation shifting into territory far beyond the simple rescue of a stranded hiker. Miss Callahan? This is Vincent Torres, head of security for Chun Innovations. We need to speak with you immediately. Emma glanced at Sophia, who had straightened her posture despite her injuries, all pretense of casualness gone. Your call, Emma, she said quietly. But whatever you decide, I'm genuinely grateful for what you did yesterday. With a deep breath, Emma opened the door to find three figures in tactical gear, the leader a sharp-eyed man in his 40s who immediately presented credentials identifying him as Chun Innovation Security. Miss Callahan, we understand you may have assisted a hiker during yesterday's wildfire conditions, he stated, his tone professional but with unmistakable urgency. We need to debrief you and ensure everything is secure. Everything's secure. Here, Mr. Torres, Emma replied carefully. Just helped a woman who fell from the Rin trail. She's right inside if you want to talk to her. The security team exchanged glances that confirmed Emma's growing suspicion. This was no ordinary lost hiker. And this was no ordinary welfare check. May we come in? Torres asked, though his tone made it clear this was more protocol than actual request. As Emma stepped aside to allow them entry, one agent immediately moved to secure the perimeter, while another established communications with the helicopter. Torres and the fourth agent approached Sophia with a mixture of relief and professionally contained urgency. Miss Chun, thank God, Torres said quietly. Your father has been extremely concerned. Are you injured? Not Sophia and father? Emma felt the ground shift beneath her understanding of the situation. Her mysterious guest wasn't just some corporate employee, but the daughter of James Chun, founder of one of the world's most valuable technology companies. Minor concussion, possibly bruised ribs, the woman replied, all pretense gone as she shifted fully into her actual identity. Miss Callahan here provided emergency assistance and shelter during the fire danger. She's former search and rescue, Western County team. Torres turned to Emma with a reassessing gaze. Miss Callahan, we appreciate your assistance in this matter. However, I need to inform you that you've been involved in a situation with significant corporate security implications. We'll need you to sign some confidentiality agreements and debrief with our team. Emma glanced around her modest farmhouse, now suddenly filled with private security personnel, attending to a woman important enough to warrant immediate corporate extraction. The simple act of helping a fallen hiker had somehow catapulted her into a world far removed from her struggling ranch and impending foreclosure. I'm happy to cooperate, Emma said carefully, but I'd like to understand exactly what's happening in my home. Sophia exchanged glances with Torres before making what appeared to be a significant decision. Miss Callahan deserves some explanation given the circumstances. Clear the room, please. as the other security personnel withdrew to secure positions. Outside, Sophia turned to Emma with an expression of genuine respect. "Miss Callahan, what I'm about to tell you is confidential at the highest corporate levels. I am indeed Sophia Chun, Chief Innovation Officer at Chun Innovations and daughter of James Chun. The device you found is a prototype quantum encryption key that contains access to breakthrough technology. Our company is developing technology that could revolutionize water reclamation and drought management worldwide." The weight of this revelation hung in the air between them. Emma Callahan, struggling rancher on the verge of foreclosure, had unwittingly rescued one of the most important technology executives in the world, and now possessed knowledge of innovations that placed her in an entirely unexpected position. What Emma couldn't possibly know as she processed this extraordinary revelation was that this chance encounter during a wildfire would lead to an opportunity that would not only save her family ranch, but draw her into a world of corporate intrigue and technological innovation that would transform her life in ways she could never have imagined. The ranch house kitchen had become an impromptu command center. Vincent Torres had established secure communications with San Francisco while a medic carefully examined Sophia Chun's injuries. Emma Callahan sat at her grandfather's oak table, still processing the revelation that her rescue of a stranded hiker had plunged her directly into matters of corporate security and technological innovation. The drought conditions were actually fortunate, Sophia explained, wincing slightly as the medic examined her ribs. "It prevented anyone else from finding me before your people did." "Anyone else?" Emma asked, picking up on the implication. Sophia exchanged glances with Torres before responding. "My fall wasn't entirely accidental. I was forced off the trail approximately half a mile before the point where you found me." "You were attacked?" Emma's rescue instincts immediately heightened, and she found herself moving to check the windows, a habit from her emergency response days that had never entirely faded. "We believe so," Torres confirmed, looking up from his secure tablet. Satellite imagery captured a second individual leaving the area shortly after Ms. Chun went over the edge. The worsening fire conditions prevented them from confirming whether their objective was completed. The implications hung heavily in the room. Had Emma not come along when she did, had she chosen to drive past like most people would have during dangerous conditions, Sophia might have suffered far worse injuries, or been found by whoever had forced her off the trail. "So I stumbled into a corporate espionage attempt," Emma said quietly, scratching Blue behind the ears as the dog remained vigilantly by her side. "We don't use that terminology without confirmation," Torres replied diplomatically, "but your intervention was extraordinarily timely." Sophia dismissed the medic with a nod and turned her full attention to Emma. "Miss Callahan, your rescue record indicates someone with exceptional situational awareness and decision-making abilities under pressure. Yesterday proved those qualities remain intact. Tell me, what made you stop when most would have continued driving?" The question caught Emma off guard. She'd been expecting interrogation about what she might have seen or heard, not an inquiry into her motivations. "Honestly, I'm not sure," she admitted after a moment's consideration. "Something didn't look right about those marks on the roadside, too fresh in the worsening conditions. And I guess, while living out here, we look out for each other. City folks don't always understand that." Sophia nodded thoughtfully. Community responsibility, a value that seems increasingly rare. She glanced around the modest farmhouse with its worn furniture and carefully maintained but outdated equipment. "Torres mentioned you're a third-generation rancher. The property's been in your family since the 1950s? "Yes, my grandfather bought it after coming home from Korea. My father expanded it in the 80s, and I took over after my search and rescue years when his health failed." Emma paused, the financial reality of her situation momentarily overshadowing even these extraordinary circumstances. "Though to be honest, I'm not sure how much longer I'll be able to hold on to it." 3 drought years in a row have put me underwater. With the bank. If Emma expected sympathy, what she received instead was intensified interest. Sophia straightened, exchanging a significant look with Torres. This property is approximately 30 miles from the Central Valley watershed, accessible only by County Road 88, with natural elevation features, providing water runoff patterns to 3 different districts, Sophia noted with surprising precision. And you maintain equipment for managing in extreme weather conditions? Have to out here, Emma confirmed, puzzled by this line of questioning. Got the generators, water purification systems, independent wells. My father installed cisterns for rainwater collection decades before it became popular. And your nearest neighbor? Williams Ranch about 6 miles south, then the Henderson Place 12 miles north. Not exactly a crowded neighborhood. Sophia nodded as if confirming something to herself. Miss Callahan, your assistance yesterday may have prevented a significant CORPORATE security incident. While I can't discuss the specific nature of my research or the information contained in the quantum key you recovered, I can tell you that my work involves developing technology that could fundamentally transform drought management and water reclamation worldwide. The formal language didn't mask what Emma was beginning to understand. She had rescued someone involved with creating technology that could potentially solve the very problem, threatening her ranch someone important enough that unknown competitors had attempted to eliminate her on a remote hiking trail during hazardous conditions. In light of your service and the unique circumstances of our meeting, Sophia continued, I'd like to propose something unconventional. Shen Innovations maintains a network of field testing locations throughout the country properties that meet specific geographical and resource criteria, owned by vetted individuals who provide certain services when needed. Torres looked up sharply, clearly surprised by whatever Sophia was suggesting. Ms. Chun, standard protocols require extensive background. I'm well aware of standard protocols. Torres, Sophia interrupted with the quiet authority of someone accustomed to making exceptional decisions. But I'm also aware that Miss Callahan has already demonstrated trustworthiness under extraordinary circumstances, has relevant emergency response training, and possesses a property with strategic advantages. Sometimes fate provides opportunities that bureaucracy would overlook. She turned back to Emma. Simply put, Miss Callahan, we occasionally need secure properties where certain environmental testing can be conducted without corporate competition. Interference. Owners of such properties are compensated generously for maintaining specific security standards and absolute discretion. Emma studied Sophia's expression, looking for the catch. You're offering to pay me to what, keep a room available for corporate scientists who might never show up? It's somewhat more involved than that, Sophia acknowledged. There would be certain modifications to your property water monitoring systems, soil analysis equipment, possibly some structural reinforcements to support the testing apparatus. You would receive training in basic maintenance protocols, but essentially, yes, you would be compensated for maintaining this property as a potential testing location, with significant bonuses when it's actually utilized. Which might be never, Emma noted skeptically. Or might be frequently, given your strategically advantageous location at the convergence of 3 watershed systems, Sophia countered. The compensation package is substantial, Ms. Callahan, likely enough to resolve your current financial difficulties and ensure the ranch remains in your family for another generation. The offer hung in the air between them, unexpected, almost unbelievable, yet tantalizing in its potential to solve the financial crisis that had been consuming Emma's life. Before she could respond, Torres's secure tablet chimed with an incoming message. Miss Chun, we have confirmation of the second individual. County Sheriff found abandoned equipment at a rental cabin 5 miles north. Forensics team is en route, but preliminary reports indicate at least 2 individuals were involved. Sophia nodded grimly. They'll have gone to ground now that the operation failed, but ensure all regional law enforcement has the profile indicators. She turned back to Emma. I apologize for conducting business in your home, Miss Callahan, but circumstances necessitate efficiency. Emma waved off the apology, her mind still processing the extraordinary offer that had just been presented. This testing site network, is it something new, created because of what happened to you? No, Sophia replied, her expression carefully neutral. The network has existed in various forms since Chun Innovations began developing environmental technologies. What happened yesterday simply highlighted a gap in our coverage in this region, a gap your property could ideally fill. There was something in Sophia's tone that suggested she wasn't revealing everything. But before Emma could press further, one of the security personnel by the window tensed visibly. Movement at the southern perimeter, she reported crisply. Single vehicle approaching slowly. County markings, possibly local sheriff. Torres moved immediately to the window, scanning the approaching vehicle through specialized binoculars. Confirmed Sheriff's Department SUV, single occupant, no alert indicators. The tension in the room eased marginally, but Emma noted that one agent had discreetly positioned himself where he could monitor the approaching vehicle while maintaining cover. These weren't people who left security to chance, even when dealing with local law enforcement. Miss Callahan, we'll need to establish a consistent narrative for any inquiries about yesterday, Sophia said quietly. The simplest approach is often the best. You found a stranded hiker during hazardous conditions, provided emergency assistance, and we're now arranging transportation back to the city. No need to mention the false specifics or my particular role. The implication was clear. They were asking Emma to participate in a controlled deception, even if only by omission. 24 hours ago, such a request might have troubled her deeply. Now, having glimpsed the world these people operated in, she found herself nodding in agreement. Sheriff Rodriguez is a good woman, Emma offered. Known her since high school. She's not the suspicious type. Nevertheless, we'll handle the interaction, Torres stated firmly. Miss Chun, you should remain out of sight until we've established the situation. As the security team prepared for the sheriff's arrival, Sophia took advantage of the momentary privacy to address Emma directly, her voice lowered. Miss Callahan, regardless of your decision about my offer, I want you to understand something. What you did yesterday, stopping to help a stranger during dangerous conditions, speaks to character, qualities that are increasingly rare and valuable. Your decision likely saved my life, but more importantly, it protected technological innovations that could help thousands of ranchers and farmers struggling with the same drought conditions you're facing. The sincerity in Sophia's voice was unmistakable, and Emma found herself responding to the woman rather than her position. Anyone would have done the same, she offered, though both knew that wasn't true. No, they wouldn't have, Sophia replied, with absolute certainty. And that's precisely why I'm making this highly irregular offer. Sometimes the most effective partners aren't those created by the system, but those who demonstrate the right instincts naturally. The sheriff's vehicle had stopped in the farmyard, and Torres was already moving toward the door to intercept her. Sophia handed Emma a sleek business card with only a phone number printed on it. Take 48 hours to consider the offer, she said. This number will connect you directly to my office. If you accept, we can begin the process immediately. If not, this conversation never happened. As Torres greeted Sheriff Rodriguez at the door with practiced ease, Emma pocketed the card, aware that the simple rectangle of paper represented a potential turning point in her life, an unexpected opportunity, arising from a split-second decision to stop on a dusty road during the worst fire season in 40 years. What Emma Callahan couldn't possibly know as she prepared to greet her old high school acquaintance was that Sophia Chun's interest in her property went far beyond its potential as a testing site. Deep in Chun Innovations' private archives, a File nearly 15 years old contained photographs of Emma's father standing beside a much younger James Chun, both men wearing expressions suggesting they shared secrets that had never been recorded in any official history. Sheriff Maria Rodriguez had known Emma Callahan since they played high school volleyball together 20 years earlier. They'd taken different paths, Maria to law enforcement after State University, Emma to search and rescue, and then back to her family ranch, but maintained the casual familiarity of women who had grown up in the same small community. "Quite the fire season, Em," the sheriff commented as she stepped into the farmhouse entryway, her eyes registering the presence of the corporate security team with professional curiosity but no immediate alarm. In rural areas, private security occasionally appeared for wealthy landowners or corporate interests. "Record breaker," Emma agreed, playing her part in the carefully constructed narrative. "Found this woman stranded on the rim trail yesterday. Couldn't get through to emergency services, so brought her here to wait out the worst conditions." Torres smoothly inserted himself into the conversation. "Vincent Torres, Chen Innovation Security," he introduced himself, presenting credentials that the sheriff examined with appropriate respect. "We appreciate Miss Callahan's assistance with our colleague. We've arranged extraction and wanted to check if the county needed any support with fire response while our assets are in the area." It was a masterful deflection, shifting the sheriff's attention from questions about why corporate security personnel were at a local ranch to an offer of assistance that no rural sheriff would decline during historic fire conditions. "That's mighty generous," Sheriff Rodriguez replied, visibly shifting mental gears. "We've got 2 elderly couples still unaccounted for in the eastern sector. Our vehicles can't make it through some of the blocked roads. I'll coordinate with our helicopter team," Torres assured her. "If you can provide the coordinates, we'd be happy to assist." As the sheriff and Torres moved to the kitchen table to mark locations on a county map, Emma found herself standing beside Sophia, who had emerged from the adjacent room but maintained a low profile, allowing Torres to manage the interaction. "You run a tight operation," Emma observed quietly. "Necessity," Sophia replied simply. "Torres was Special Forces before joining our security division. He has a particular talent for redirecting attention." The casual reference to Special Forces reminded Emma of exactly who she was dealing with. Not just any corporate executive, but someone directly connected to one of the world's most powerful technology companies. Someone important enough that her safety warranted immediate high-level response. After the sheriff departed, promised aerial support for her search and rescue efforts, the atmosphere in the farmhouse shifted. The tactical team began preparing for departure, gathering equipment and securing communications. "We'll be transported to a secondary location before returning to San Francisco," Sophia explained as she carefully put on her jacket, movements measured to accommodate her injured ribs. "Standard protocol when there's been a security incident." Emma nodded, understanding the logic while still finding it surreal that such high-level security protocols were playing out in her modest farmhouse. "And your attackers will be pursued through appropriate channels," Sophia replied with careful neutrality that revealed nothing while suggesting much. "You don't need to be concerned about potential retaliation. As far as any hostile actors are concerned, I was rescued by an anonymous emergency response team." Torres approached with a tablet displaying a digital document. "Ms. Callahan, this is a standard non-disclosure agreement covering your interaction with Miss Chun and knowledge of our operations. Essentially, you agree not to discuss today's events with anyone." Emma took the tablet, scanning the dense legal language. "Pretty serious penalties listed here." "Corporate security requires discretion," he replied evenly, though Sophia had expressed her personal confidence in Emma's reliability. After a moment's consideration, Emma signed the document with her fingertip on the screen. Whatever she had stumbled into by rescuing a stranded hiker, she had no intention of broadcasting it to the world. Ms. Chun's offer remains open for 48 hours, Torres added, taking back the tablet. Should you decide to accept, the process would begin immediately. As the team prepared for final departure, Sophia approached Emma once more. "Walk with me to the helicopter, if you would," she requested, her tone making it clear this wasn't merely a courtesy. Outside, the landscape had begun to clear, the worst of the smoke shifting eastward with the changing winds. They walked slowly, Sophia's injuries necessitating a measured pace. "Your father was Daniel Callahan, correct?" Sophia asked once they were beyond earshot of the others. The question caught Emma by surprise. "Yes, he passed about 5 years ago. Why?" Sophia seemed to be weighing her words carefully. Did he ever mention his work with environmental engineers during the early 2000s, before he focused entirely on ranching? Emma frowned, memories stirring of childhood conversations with a father who had always seemed to know more about water management than typical ranchers. He mentioned consulting for some tech companies, occasionally water reclamation projects. He called them. My mother used to joke about his mysterious trips to Silicon Valley. Sophia nodded as if this confirmed something. "Ms. Callahan, there's another reason I'm interested in your property beyond its strategic location. Your father was part of a highly classified research program codenamed Aquarius during the 2000s. The program established a network of testing locations for early water reclamation technologies, places known only to a select few, maintained by landowners with specific backgrounds. The revelation landed heavily, connecting stray pieces of Emma's childhood memories, her father's occasional unexplained absences, the unusual water collection system that was always kept carefully maintained, the strange visitors who sometimes arrived late at night for hushed conversations. The Aquarius network was officially discontinued in 2010. Sophia continued, watching Emma's reaction carefully. Most locations were removed from active service, their owners compensated for their discretion. But a few properties maintained certain structural elements that were never fully deactivated. Structural elements? Emma repeated, her mind racing to interpret the deliberately vague terminology. "Ms. Callahan, have you ever accessed the lower level of your southeastern field, the area beneath the old water tower?" The question sent a jolt through Emma. The southeastern field contained a locked underground pumping station her father had explicitly forbidden her from attempting to access, stating simply that it contained dangerous old equipment that her grandfather had installed after returning from Korea. Emma had respected the long-standing prohibition out of habit, focusing her efforts on the actively used portions of the ranch. "No," she admitted. "Dad always said it was just abandoned irrigation equipment, nothing worth bothering with." Sophia's expression revealed nothing, but her continued interest spoke volumes. "The offer I extended earlier was genuine but incomplete. We're not just interested in establishing your property as a testing location. We believe it may already contain infrastructure from the original Aquarius program that could be reactivated, saving considerable resources compared to building from scratch." They had reached the helicopter, its rotors beginning their pre-flight sequence. Sophia handed Emma a second item, not a business card this time, but a small metallic object that resembled an ordinary flash drive. "This contains specialized scanning software. If you decide to explore the southeastern field, this will help you identify any Aquarius infrastructure that remains active. The non-disclosure agreement you signed covers anything you might discover." She paused, then added with unexpected frankness, "Your father served the scientific community in ways that never appeared in any official record. Ms. Callahan, the decision to continue that legacy is entirely yours, but I believe he would be proud to see the next generation take up that mantle." With a final handshake, Sophia boarded the helicopter. Minutes later, the aircraft rose into the clearing sky, banked sharply, and disappeared over the eastern horizon. leaving Emma Callahan standing alone in the ash-covered field, a small metal device in her hand and questions multiplying in her mind. The farmhouse felt strangely empty after the departure of the corporate security team. Blue settled back into his usual spot by the front door while Emma made a fresh pot of coffee, mind reeling from the day's revelations. Her simple act of compassion during hazardous conditions had somehow connected her to classified corporate programs, technological innovations, and now apparently a secret legacy left by her father. The flash drive Sophia had given her sat on the kitchen table, innocuous yet somehow radiating importance. Emma's laptop was 3 years old, purchased when cattle prices had briefly spiked enough to justify the expense. She powered it up, inserted the drive, and watched as a single application appeared, no labels, just a minimalist interface requesting authorization. When she touched the screen, the device in her hand vibrated slightly, and the program immediately authorized, suggesting it contained some form of proximity verification. A simple map appeared showing the layout of her property, with a pulsing indicator highlighting the southeastern field. "What were you involved in, Dad?" Emma murmured, staring at the screen. The southeastern field was the most remote section of her property, bordering national forest land on one side and a seasonal creek on the other. Unlike the main grazing pastures, which she had maintained with increasingly limited resources, the southeastern area had been left mostly undeveloped except for an old water tower and pumping station that predated even her father's ownership. Emma pulled on her work boots and made her way through the ash-covered landscape to the indicated location. The air had begun to clear, though distant fires still sent plumes of smoke into the sky, creating an eerie, filtered light across the ranch. The water tower stood like a sentinel at the edge of the property, its weathered structure a landmark she'd seen her entire life but rarely approached. With the scanning program running on her phone, Emma entered the small pumping station at the tower's base and waited. For nearly a minute, nothing happened. Then, as she moved toward the back wall, the device began to emit a soft pulsing tone, its display showing a heat map overlay that intensified as she approached what appeared to be a solid concrete wall. Upon closer inspection, Emma noticed subtle inconsistencies in the aging concrete lines, too straight to be random cracks, corners too precise to be the result of natural settling. Following the scanner's guidance, she pressed her palm against a specific section of wall that appeared identical to the surrounding surface. Nothing happened. Just as disappointment began to set in, the scanner displayed a new message: legacy. Authentication required. Emma remembered Sophia's words about structural elements that were never fully deactivated, and her pointed question about whether Emma had ever accessed the lower level. Clearly, there was an access mechanism here, but it required something she didn't have. Or did she? Emma's thoughts turned to her father's study in the farmhouse, preserved largely as it had been during his lifetime, a small room lined with agricultural references, family photographs, and mementos from a life spent balancing ranching with what were apparently classified corporate activities. What Emma Callahan couldn't know as she hurried back toward the farmhouse, determined to search for whatever legacy authentication might mean, was that 30 miles away, in the abandoned rental cabin where Sheriff Rodriguez had found the equipment involved in Sophia's accident, a sophisticated listening device was transmitting everything the sheriff reported back to individuals whose interest in the Chun Innovations executive, and now potentially in Emma Callahan's ranch, represented a threat that had been evolving in the shadows for nearly 15 years. Emma Callahan's father's study remained largely untouched since Daniel Callahan's passing 5 years earlier. Emma had maintained it as a kind of memorial, finding comfort in the familiar space during difficult times. The small room contained a lifetime of memories: agricultural awards, family photographs, county fair ribbons, and the personal effects of a man who had clearly lived a more complex life than his daughter had ever realized. Legacy authentication, Emma murmured, surveying the room with fresh eyes. What would constitute authentication for a decades-old secret research facility? A key, a code, some form of identification that would have been important enough for her father to keep, but ordinary-looking enough to avoid drawing attention? She began a methodical search, starting with the heavy oak desk that dominated the room. The drawers contained the expected items: old correspondence, ranching records, maintenance logs for equipment long since replaced, nothing that suggested connections to classified water technology programs. The bookshelf yielded similarly. Mundane results: agricultural references, wildlife identification guides, family Bibles recording births and deaths across generations. Emma ran her fingers along the spines, looking for anything that seemed out of place among a rancher's typical collection. "Come on, Dad," she muttered in frustration. "If you left something behind, where would you hide it?" Her gaze fell on a framed photograph she'd seen countless times, her father standing beside their prized irrigation system, the first major piece of equipment he'd purchased after a particularly successful season in 2003. Something about the image nagged at Emma's memory, something her father had once said about that system. "The key to our future," Daniel Callahan had often remarked with a wink when showing the photograph to visitors. As a child, Emma had taken the statement literally. The new irrigation system had indeed expanded their production capacity. Now, she wondered if there had been a second meaning hiding in plain sight all these years. Emma carefully removed the photograph from the wall and examined the frame. It appeared ordinary, if somewhat heavier than necessary for its size. When she turned it over, the backing seemed perfectly normal as well, until she noticed almost imperceptible indentations at each corner, as if designed for a specific pressure pattern. Following instinct, Emma pressed all four corners simultaneously. With a soft click, the seemingly solid backing separated, revealing a hidden compartment containing a small metal case. Inside the case, nestled in custom-fitted foam, lay what appeared to be an ordinary USB drive, the kind her father had carried daily for ranch business. Emma had assumed it had been lost when he died. The silver casing bore the Callahan Ranch brand, a custom edition her father had commissioned during more prosperous times. "This is it?" Emma wondered aloud, turning the drive over in her hands. It seemed disappointingly mundane for something hidden so carefully. On closer inspection, however, several unusual features became apparent. The drive was significantly heavier than it should have been. The connector had subtle notches that didn't match any standard USB design. And most tellingly, the casing contained an unusual recessed button not found on commercial drives. Taking the drive and her phone with the scanning program still active, Emma returned to the southeastern field. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the drought-stricken landscape, highlighting the contrast between the actively maintained sections of the ranch and this long-neglected corner. Inside the pumping station, the scanner once again led her to the suspicious section of concrete wall. This time, Emma examined the surface more carefully, running her fingers along the almost imperceptible seams her eyes had missed before. Near waist height, she found a small depression that might accommodate the drive. "Legacy authentication," she murmured, placing the USB drive into the shallow recess. It fit perfectly, but nothing happened. The scanner displayed a new message: "Authentication sequence required." Emma studied the drive, noting the unusual recessed button. Acting on intuition, she pressed it, causing a small panel to slide open on the drive's casing, revealing a numeric keypad. Following the pattern of her father's birth year 1968, she entered the digits. With a sound like pressurized air releasing, a section of the concrete wall recessed and then slid sideways, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. "Holy!" Emma breathed, momentarily frozen in place. The scanner in her hand beeped, displaying a simple message: "Aquarius. Access confirmed. Proceeding with system reactivation." Lights flickered to life along the stairwell, seemingly responding to the scanner's signal. The system had been dormant, but not dead, waiting all these years for proper authentication. With Blue following cautiously behind her, Emma descended the stairs, counting 32 steps before reaching the small landing with a heavy metal door. Unlike the weathered pumping station above, this infrastructure showed remarkable preservation, built to last decades without maintenance. The door opened automatically as she approached, revealing a chamber that instantly transported Emma back to science fiction imagery she'd seen in movies. Banks of equipment lined the walls, water analysis systems, monitoring stations, and technology that represented the pinnacle of environmental research from the 2000s, integrated with what appeared to be more modern components added in later years. "Dad, what were you involved in?" Emma whispered, moving slowly through the underground facility. The main room led to several smaller chambers, a basic laboratory area, sleeping quarters with 2 bunks, a storage room containing preserved research equipment and supplies, and most surprisingly, an extensive water purification system with technology Emma had never seen before, far beyond what was commercially available. On the central desk, a yellowed envelope bore a single word. In her father's distinctive handwriting, Emma. With hands that trembled slightly from the weight of discovery, Emma opened the envelope and unfolded a letter dated June 10, 2010. "To my daughter. If you're reading this, you've either been contacted by Chun Innovations or you've discovered what I've kept hidden for nearly a decade. If it's the latter, I owe you an explanation. In 2001, I was recruited into a program called Aquarius, not as a scientist or engineer, but as a keeper of vital research ground. James Chun recognized that corporate facilities would be primary targets for industrial espionage. As his water reclamation technology developed, he needed backup locations known to only a select few, maintained by landowners whose profiles wouldn't attract attention. Our ranch was selected for its unique water table access, sitting at the confluence of 3 watershed systems, yet isolated from major agricultural operations. Beneath this ordinary pumping station, they built an extraordinary facility, a hardened research bunker designed to house breakthrough water purification technology during its most vulnerable development stages. I maintained this facility for 9 years, hosting 4 major research teams and developing 2 critical technological breakthroughs that never appeared in any public record. In 2010, when the program was officially discontinued after Chun Innovations moved its research offshore, I was instructed to seal this facility, but not dismantle it, a precaution that seemed excessive then, but perhaps has proven wise. If you're reading this now, the authentication drive contains access codes known only to me and Aquarius Command. If Chun representatives have directed you here, they likely have protocol documentation. If you've discovered this on your own, proceed with extreme caution. Knowledge of this facility places you in a position both privileged and potentially dangerous. Whatever circumstances have led to the reopening of this site, know that its purpose was always to develop technology that could sustain our way of life during increasingly severe drought conditions. Use it accordingly, with integrity and hope. Daniel Callahan, Aquarius Keeper, Site Watershed. Emma sat heavily in the desk chair, the letter trembling slightly in her hands. Her father, the man who had taught her to ride, to ranch, to respect the land, had simultaneously been serving as guardian of a classified corporate research facility, potentially hosting revolutionary water technology during its development. The scanner on the desk chimed softly, displaying a new message. Initial systems check complete. Aquarius Site Watershed at 38% operational capacity. Awaiting full reactivation authorization. Before Emma could process this information, another alert appeared. Incoming communication on Aquarius Secure Channel. Accept? Heart pounding, Emma tapped accept, and Sophia Chun's voice emerged from a speaker system that had sat dormant for years. Miss Callahan, I see you found your father's legacy. Our monitoring systems indicated the site reactivation. Are you alone? Yes, Emma replied, the surrealism of speaking to a corporate executive through dormant communication equipment not lost on her. Just me and my dog. I found my father's letter about being an Aquarius keeper. What exactly does that mean for me? It means you have a choice to make, Sophia replied, her tone serious but not pressuring. The Aquarius program never truly ended, Ms. Callahan. It evolved. The original network included 23 sites across the country, each designed to support water reclamation research during critical development stages. Over time, most were decommissioned or converted to other uses as technology changed and new facilities were built. But not this one, Emma noted, looking around at the remarkably preserved underground bunker. No, not site watershed. Your father's facility was among a handful designated for preservation due to its strategic location and unique features. According to our records, it contained something that made it particularly valuable, something called the Genesis Protocol. Emma scanned the room, seeing nothing that matched such a significant-sounding designation. I don't see anything like that, just water monitoring equipment, living quarters, and some locked cabinets. The Genesis Protocol wouldn't be immediately visible, Sophia explained. For security reasons, it required separate authentication. Likely something personal to your father that wouldn't appear in official documentation. The implication was clear. Whatever this Genesis Protocol contained, it was significant enough that even those who knew about the Aquarius program weren't privy to its access protocols. Only Daniel Callahan had held that information, apparently taking it to his grave, unless he had left clues for his daughter. Director Chun, Emma said slowly, why are you telling me all this? What's happening that made finding this place suddenly important after all these years? A pause stretched over the communication system before Sophia responded. 3 days ago, someone attempted to access the dormant Aquarius network through obsolete channels that should have been deactivated. Years ago. Yesterday, I was forced off the trail after I collected hard copy records related to site watershed from our secure archive facility. These are not coincidences, Miss Callahan. You think someone is looking for whatever's in my father's bunker. Emma concluded, the Genesis Protocol, whatever that is. Yes, and the fact that they're willing to target someone of my position suggests they have both resources and determination, which means you may be in danger as well as the property owner and Daniel Callahan's daughter. The weight of this statement settled heavily on Emma. Her simple act of compassion during hazardous conditions had not only revealed her father's secret legacy, but potentially placed her in the crosshairs of unknown adversaries. What do you want me to do? She asked finally. For now, secure the facility and return to your house. We're dispatching a protection team that should arrive within the hour. I'm also expediting the paperwork for your formal integration into the current iteration of the Aquarius program, which includes significant security upgrades to your property and financial compensation that should resolve your issues with the bank. The practical concerns that had dominated Emma's life just days ago, the impending foreclosure, the struggle to maintain the family ranch now seemed almost trivial compared to secret bunkers and mysterious protocols. Yet Sophia had made a point of addressing those concerns, recognizing their importance to Emma despite the larger security implications at play. And the Genesis Protocol? Emma asked. If you can locate it before our team arrives, secure it, but do not attempt to access its contents without proper protocols. If not, our specialists can assist with non-invasive scanning techniques that might identify its location. As Emma prepared to follow these instructions, securing the bunker and returning to the farmhouse, she noticed something she had overlooked during her initial exploration, a photograph tucked into the frame of a technical diagram on the wall. It showed her father standing with 3 other people against a desert backdrop, all smiling in casual clothes, that suggested a company retreat rather than research work. Yet something about one of the women caught Emma's attention, a familiar face, much younger than she had ever seen it in person, but unmistakable nonetheless. It was Sophia Chun, decades ago, arm in arm with Daniel Callahan on what appeared to be a simple hiking trip among colleagues. What Emma Callahan couldn't know as she stared at this photograph, connecting pieces of a puzzle whose scope she was only beginning to comprehend, was that the Genesis protocol hidden somewhere on her property contained information that could reshape public understanding of water rights for the next 50 years, and that the protection team Sophia mentioned was racing against others who had already triangulated the Aquarius activation signal and were now less than 15 minutes from the ranch's perimeter. The evening sun had set by the time Emma Callahan returned to her farmhouse, casting the ash-covered landscape into purple, twilight broken only by security lights illuminating the yard. The photograph from the bunker was tucked securely in her jacket pocket, tangible evidence of a connection between her father and Sophia Chen that she was still struggling to comprehend. Blue trotted alongside her, the dog's senses more alert than usual, as if he too understood that their familiar surroundings had transformed into something more complex and potentially dangerous. Inside the farmhouse, Emma secured all doors and windows, a precaution that would have seemed paranoid just days ago but now felt woefully inadequate given Sophia's warnings. The protection team was reportedly en route, but until they arrived, she was alone with knowledge that apparently made her a target. As she filled Blue's water bowl, her gaze fell on the kitchen wall where generations of Callahan family photographs chronicled the ranch's history. Among them was a picture taken on her 16th birthday, herself grinning proudly beside her father at Eagle Canyon, the same canyon where she'd found Sophia Chun. Something about the image triggered a connection. In her mind, her father had given her a special gift that birthday, a silver compass he claimed contained everything a young woman needs to find her true direction. Emma had kept it for years before relegating it to her jewelry box when more sophisticated GPS equipment replaced the simple tool for her rescue work, the compass. There had always been something unusual about it, a weight that seemed excessive for its size, and a back panel that her father had said should never be removed as it would compromise the calibration. Moving quickly to her bedroom, Emma retrieved the old compass from her jewelry box. The silver case showed its age, the once shiny surface now dulled with tarnish. The compass itself still worked, the needle swinging reliably to magnetic north as it had when her father first presented it to her. Turning it over in her hands, Emma examined the back panel more carefully. Unlike a standard compass, the edges were sealed with a precision that suggested something beyond simple waterproofing. Around the edge ran a thin groove that might accommodate a thin blade. Using her pocket knife, Emma carefully worked the blade into the groove. With gentle pressure, the back panel separated from the compass body, revealing not the expected mechanical components, but a small data storage device similar in size to a microSD card but of a design Emma had never seen before. On the inside of the back panel, etched in microscopic text, were the words, "Genesis begins with truth." The implications crashed over Emma like a wave. Her father hadn't just been a participant in the Aquarius program, he had been entrusted with something so valuable that extraordinary measures had been taken to conceal it. The Genesis protocol wasn't a location or a system, it was data, hidden in plain sight in a birthday gift. Before she could examine it further, Blue's ears perked up, the dog moving quickly to the front window with a low growl building in his throat. Outside, Emma could see headlights approaching along the private access road that led to her property, not from the main highway where Sophia's protection team would likely arrive, but from the rarely used forestry service road that bordered her western acreage. Someone was attempting to approach undetected. Heart pounding, Emma quickly returned the data card to the compass and slipped it into her pocket. Moving to her father's gun cabinet, She retrieved her shotgun, a practical necessity for rural life, rather than a tactical choice, and positioned herself where she could monitor the approaching vehicle while maintaining cover. The headlights cut through the darkness, revealing an unmarked black SUV moving slowly but purposefully toward the farmhouse. It stopped at the edge of the illuminated yard, remaining just outside the circle of security lighting up. Tactical positioning that confirmed these were not friendly visitors. Emma's satellite phone buzzed with an incoming message from a blocked number. Protection team delayed by roadblock. Hostiles approaching your location. Secure Genesis and evacuate to site watershed. Authorization Chun. The message's implications were clear. The protection team Sophia had promised had been deliberately intercepted, and whoever had forced the executive off the hiking trail had now traced the Aquarius activation signal to Emma's ranch. Making a split-second decision, Emma grabbed her emergency bag, always kept ready from her search and rescue days, her father's compass with the hidden data, a flashlight, and her shotgun. With Blue following closely, she slipped out the back door and moved swiftly through the shadows toward the equipment barn where her truck was stored. From this vantage point, she could see 3 figures emerging from the SUV, their movements betraying professional training. They carried tactical gear and what appeared to be signal detection equipment professionals, conducting a methodical search rather than common criminals. The truck would be too loud and too slow, likely drawing immediate attention. Instead, Emma moved to the far corner of the barn, where she kept her ATV covered and maintained for ranch emergencies. The machine was designed for minimal noise, a feature she'd paid extra for to avoid disturbing wildlife during her property boundary checks. As she secured her bag to the ATV's storage compartment, Emma heard the distinctive sound of her farmhouse door being forced open. The intruders had abandoned any pretense of subtlety, clearly operating under time constraints that required immediate action. Starting the ATV, Emma kept the lights off, relying on moonlight reflecting off the dusty landscape and her intimate knowledge of the property to navigate. With Blue running alongside, she took a circuitous route toward the southeastern field, avoiding open areas and using the tree line for cover whenever possible. Behind her, she could hear voices shouting and engines starting as the intruders realized their target had escaped. Searchlights began sweeping across the property, methodically tracking outward from the farmhouse. Reaching the water tower, Emma quickly dismounted and used the compass to access the hidden bunker. The stairway illuminated automatically as before, but this time she noticed a control panel inside the main door that hadn't activated during her previous visit. The scanner Sophia had provided now displayed emergency protocols available. Initiate. With the sounds of pursuit growing closer, Emma tapped yes without hesitation. Immediately, red warning lights replaced the standard illumination throughout the bunker, and a mechanical voice announced, Aquarius Site Watershed Lockdown initiated. Security measures activating. From her position at the bunker entrance, Emma watched in astonishment as hidden panels in the water tower's base retracted, revealing sophisticated defense systems that had been concealed for years, motion sensors, surveillance cameras, and what appeared to be non-lethal deterrent devices designed to secure the perimeter without causing permanent harm. The bunker door sealed automatically behind her as she descended into the main chamber, where communication systems were now fully activated. A secure video link established itself without her input, and Sophia Chun's face appeared on the main screen. Miss Callahan, are you secure? Do you have the Genesis protocol? I'm inside the bunker, Emma confirmed, breathing heavily from the exertion and adrenaline. I found what I think is the Genesis protocol, some kind of specialized data device, hidden in a compass my father gave me for my 16th birthday. 3, Sophia corrected grimly. Our satellite coverage showed a third operator maintaining position at your access road. These aren't ordinary mercenaries, Miss Callahan. They're former private military contractors working for WaterCorp, an organization that's been attempting to locate Aquarius archives for years. The director's expression was deadly serious. "Did they see you enter the bunker?" "I don't think so. I used the ATV to approach from the north side. Kept to the tree line." "Good. The site's defensive system should keep them at bay until our team can redirect to your location." The roadblock they encountered was sophisticated, designed to appear as a standard emergency closure due to fire damage. It's being cleared now, but we're still approximately 30 minutes out. Emma set her emergency bag on the communications desk, the compass still secure in her pocket. "What exactly am I carrying, Director Chun?" "The letter mentions the Genesis Protocol, but why would anyone risk attacking a corporate executive to find it?" Sophia hesitated, clearly weighing operational security against Emma's need to understand the situation she'd been thrust into. The Genesis Protocol contains complete data on breakthrough atmospheric water harvesting technology developed between 2001 and 2010. Technology that could transform drought management worldwide, but also disrupt trillion-dollar water rights holdings if implemented without proper controls, such as Emma pressed, such as documentation proving that WaterCorp has systematically suppressed similar technologies for 20 years, while simultaneously acquiring water rights in drought-prone regions. The protocol contains evidence that would invalidate their legal claims to controlling water resources across 5 states. "So this isn't just about technology, it's about water rights control," Emma concluded. "Water is the oil of the 21st century, Miss Callahan. The only documentation proving corporate involvement is in the Genesis Protocol your father maintained." The revelation landed heavily. "You're saying a corporation deliberately poisoned groundwater to force ranchers and farmers to sell their water rights?" "I'm saying WaterCorp did so, yes, and the current Chen Innovations leadership has been working to expose these actions as part of a broader environmental justice initiative. I specifically traveled to your region to verify the status of site watershed before approaching you formally." Emma processed this information as the security monitor showed the intruders completing their cut through the concrete. The leader retrieved the specialized breaching charge from their equipment pack, designed to defeat the blast door that was now their final obstacle. "That's why you were on that hiking trail," Emma realized. "You were coming to find the Genesis Protocol." "Yes. Intelligence indicated your father's site might still be intact despite being listed as decommissioned in official records. I was en route to verify its status where I was forced off the trail by the same organization currently trying to breach your bunker. But why would they want to prevent exposure? Wouldn't revealing past corporate wrongdoing serve their interests? If they're competitors to Chun Innovations, they don't want to expose it, they want to destroy it," Sophia explained grimly. "The Genesis Protocol contains names of executives who authorized Operation Watershed, several of whom now hold significant positions at WaterCorp. That information isn't just evidence of environmental crimes, it's leverage for control of the entire Western water infrastructure." As the intruders prepared to place the breaching charge on the blast door, the bunker communication system suddenly issued an alert, perimeter notification, authorized vehicles approaching from Southern Access Road. Chun Innovation security transponders detected. "The protection team," Sophia confirmed, visible relief in her expression. "They've bypassed the roadblock and will be on site in less than 4 minutes. The intruders must have received the same information through their own monitoring equipment as their approach suddenly changed." Rather than continuing with the methodical breach, the leader began hastily attaching what appeared to be a smaller, cruder explosive device to the blast door. "They're switching tactics," Sophia warned. "They know they don't have time to breach properly, so they're going to attempt a forced entry that might damage the Genesis Protocol rather than let it be secured." The leader of the intruders finished setting the device and retreated up the stairs. On the monitor, Emma could see all three operatives moving quickly toward their vehicle, abandoning equipment in their haste. Transfer at 83%, the system announced. Estimated time to completion, 5 minutes, 18 seconds. They've left a demolition charge, Sophia said urgently. Is there any way to access the area between the concrete layer and the blast door? Emma thought quickly, remembering her father's meticulous documentation of the ranch's structures. There's a maintenance conduit that runs alongside the entrance shaft. It was designed for accessing utilities without opening the main door. Moving quickly to a narrow panel disguised as part of the wall structure, Emma removed the cover to reveal a tight passage barely wide enough for a person to navigate. I think I can reach the blast door from inside this conduit. Miss Callahan, that's an extraordinary risk, Sophia cautioned. If the charge detonates while you're in the conduit, and if it detonates while I'm in here, we lose the Genesis protocol and possibly the entire facility, Emma countered. My father protected this place for years. I'm not going to lose it. Now when we're this close. Before Sophia could object further, Emma squeezed into the narrow passage, using her flashlight to navigate the confined space. Blue whined anxiously from the main chamber, sensing his master's danger, but unable to follow. The maintenance conduit was cramped and dusty, clearly unused since the facility's active days. Emma moved as quickly as the tight space allowed, following the path as it curved alongside the main entrance shaft. After approximately 30 feet, she reached a small access panel that, according to the facility schematic Sophia had shared, should open into the space just outside the blast door. Carefully removing the panel, Emma found herself looking at the backside of the improvised explosive device the intruders had placed. Even with her limited experience, she could recognize it was a hastily assembled but effective demolition charge, designed to breach the door with brute force rather than precision. A simple digital timer showed 2 minutes, 45 seconds remaining. I can see the device, Emma reported through her satellite phone. It's got a timer set for less than 3 minutes. Can you talk me through disarming it? Describe exactly what you see, Sophia instructed, her tone professional but urgent. Emma detailed the configuration of wires and components as precisely as possible, knowing that any error in communication could be catastrophic. Standard field expedient charge with a digital timer, Sophia assessed. There should be a red wire connecting the timer to the detonator. Cutting that wire will disconnect the timing circuit. I see it, but there's also a secondary wire running to what looks like a motion sensor, Emma observed. Some kind of anti-tampering measure? Correct assessment, Sophia confirmed. They've added a failsafe. You'll need to immobilize the sensor before cutting the wire. Any movement of the device after the timer is activated would trigger immediate detonation. Using skills she'd developed during her search and rescue days, Emma carefully stabilized the motion sensor with materials from her emergency kit, then used her multi-tool to sever the connection between the timer and the detonator. The timer continued counting down, but it was now disconnected from the explosive component. I think it worked, Emma reported, carefully extracting herself from the confined space. Timer's still running, but it's been disconnected. As she squeezed back through the maintenance conduit toward the main chamber, Emma could hear vehicles approaching outside, the distinctive sound of SUVs moving at high speed across her property. Transfer complete, the system announced as Emma emerged from the conduit. Genesis protocol secured. Initiating verification protocols. On the security monitors, she could see the WaterCorp operative's vehicle speeding away across her fields, pursued by 2 black SUVs bearing Chen Innovations markings. A third vehicle stopped at the water tower, and armed personnel in tactical gear quickly secured the area, clearing the abandoned equipment. Miss Callahan, Sophia's voice came through the communication system with renewed clarity as the jamming effects faded. Status report? Device neutralized, Emma confirmed, brushing dust from her clothes. And it sounds like the transfer completed. Successfully confirmed. The Genesis protocol data is now secured in multiple classified repositories. The immediate threat has been neutralized, though we'll maintain security at your property until we can be certain no additional WaterCorp teams are in the area. As the adrenaline of the immediate crisis began to subside, Emma found herself looking around the bunker with new understanding. This wasn't just a Cold War relic or a curiosity from her father's past. It was a piece of living history, a facility that had played a role in developing technology that could transform water access for drought-stricken regions worldwide. What happens now? She asked, absently scratching Blue behind the ears as the dog pressed against her leg, relieved that his master had returned safely from the maintenance conduit. Now, Sophia said with surprising frankness, you have a choice to make. The activation of Site Watershed and the Genesis Protocol transfer have put certain protocols in motion, including the official reinstatement of your property in the modern equivalent of the Aquarius program. But your participation would need to be voluntary. What Emma Callahan couldn't know as she considered this proposition, standing in a secret bunker that had just been the target of professional operatives, her quiet ranching life irrevocably altered, was that the Genesis protocol included one file her father had added personally, a file documenting a conversation between Daniel Callahan and a young Sophia Chun, discussing water rights violations that had been hidden from the American public for more than 15 years. 6 months after the wildfire season that had changed everything, Emma Callahan stood at the edge of her southern pasture, watching as the winter rains fell steadily across land that was more vibrant and productive than it had been in years. State-of-the-art water catchment systems now ensured consistent collection regardless of rainfall patterns, and soil regeneration programs had restored nutrients depleted by years of drought. The ranch's transformation matched her own. No longer the struggling rancher desperately fighting for closure, Emma Callahan now operated one of the most technologically advanced agricultural operations in the region, while simultaneously serving as Aquarius keeper for what was officially designated Research Site Watershed. Blue barked excitedly, drawing Emma's attention to a black Tesla approaching along the newly paved private road that officially led to what government documents described as an environmental research station, but actually provided access to the thoroughly modernized Aquarius facility beneath the southeastern water tower. Sophia Chun emerged from the vehicle, moving with the easy confidence of someone who had fully recovered from her injuries. In the months since the Genesis Protocol incident, she had become a regular visitor to the Callahan Ranch, overseeing the facility's integration into the modern water reclamation research program, while developing what could only be described as a friendship with the woman who had rescued her during the fire season. Quite a difference from when we first met, Sophia observed, nodding toward the thriving pastures and renovated buildings. The environmental research grant must have been substantial. This was their private shorthand for the classified funding that had transformed the property, officially registered as research grants from a government agricultural program that existed primarily on paper. It's made a difference, Emma acknowledged, though she sometimes missed the simplicity of just worrying about cattle prices and rainfall. Emma's life now included security clearances, confidentiality agreements, and regular briefings on environmental technology protocols, a far cry from the isolated existence she'd led before pulling a stranded hiker from a canyon. The board's motorcade will arrive in approximately 30 minutes, Sophia noted, checking her watch. The advance team has already secured the perimeter. This is quite an unusual honor, Miss Callahan. Full board visits to Aquarius facilities are extraordinarily rare, even for high-priority sites. Emma nodded, understanding the significance. In the months following the Genesis Protocol incident, the carefully selected contents had been reviewed at the highest levels of corporate governance. Operation Watershed had been officially acknowledged, with a Chun Innovations apology issued to the affected communities and compensation provided to landowners whose water had been contaminated. Several former executives had been indicted, while others had quietly resigned from prestigious positions rather than face public scrutiny. But it was the additional file, the one Daniel Callahan had personally added to the Genesis protocol, that had prompted today's unprecedented board visit. "Have you reviewed the complete file yet?" Sophia asked, her tone carefully neutral despite the extraordinary nature of the question. The director had personally authorized Emma's clearance to access the full Genesis protocol contents after the Water Corp operation had been neutralized. "Last night," Emma confirmed, recalling the hours she'd spent in the secure viewing room installed beneath her property, reading her father's detailed documentation of water rights violations that had nearly fractured the entire Western water management system 15 years earlier. The file described a period during which Water Corp had systematically diverted water from indigenous lands using falsified environmental impact statements, creating artificial drought conditions in 3 states. For 2 critical years, water access had been quietly maintained by a small circle of environmental scientists operating without corporate authority, keeping the situation hidden from regulators, the public, and even most of the board. Among those scientists had been a young researcher named Sophia Chun, who had worked with Daniel Callahan to ensure that affected communities maintained minimum water access while simultaneously creating a legal pathway back to water rights justice. "It's quite a legacy your father left," Sophia observed as they walked toward the water tower where the underground facility had been transformed from a dusty relic to a modern research center. He could have simply followed protocols, documented the violations in the official record, and filed it away. Instead, he created a parallel record insurance that the truth would eventually come to light. "Dad always said that environmental stewardship needs good people serving from both inside and outside the system," Emma replied. He saw himself as straddling that line, loyal to his scientific principles, but accountable to something bigger than any corporation. The water tower's exterior remained deliberately weathered, maintaining the appearance of an ordinary agricultural structure despite the sophisticated facility hidden beneath. Inside, however, the transformation was remarkable. The concealed entrance now featured state-of-the-art biometric security, and the bunker itself had been expanded and modernized while preserving key historical elements. In the main chamber, a framed photograph had been mounted on the wall, Daniel Callahan standing beside 3 other scientists, including the much younger version of Sophia Chun. Beneath it, a simple bronze plaque read, "The Guardians stand between the people and the drought. Your father's words?" Sophia inquired, noting the inscription. "Something he used to say when I'd ask why he chose to ranch in such an isolated location," Emma confirmed. "I always thought he was talking about growing food, being part of the system that keeps people fed. I never realized he meant something more literal." As they completed final preparations for the board visit, Emma reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had brought her to this moment. A chance decision to help what appeared to be a stranded hiker during hazardous conditions had revealed a family legacy she'd never suspected, connecting her to environmental initiatives that had shaped the region from the shadows. The renovation of the Aquarius facility had uncovered additional surprises, including a sealed vault beneath the main chamber that contained personal messages Daniel Callahan had left for the daughter he correctly predicted would someday discover his secret legacy. These included detailed journals documenting his decades of service, family photographs taken at the facility during quieter moments, and letters explaining the moral complexities of maintaining corporate secrets while ensuring environmental accountability. "Board motorcade approaching the outer perimeter," announced the security system. "Estimated arrival in 8 minutes." Emma straightened her jacket, a concession to formality she rarely made, but which seemed appropriate for meeting the entire leadership of one of the world's most powerful technology companies. Hard to believe it's been 6 months since I pulled you from that canyon, she commented to Sophia. Feels like a different lifetime for both of us. The most efficient recruitment method in Aquarius history, the director agreed. Finding someone with your particular combination of qualities would have been nearly impossible through conventional channels. A subtle smile crossed Emma's face. You still think it was an accident? That fire forcing you onto that trail near my property, right when WaterCorp was closing in on the Genesis protocol. Sophia raised an eyebrow. You suspect otherwise? Let's just say I found some interesting notes in my father's personal journals. He maintained connections with certain Chun Innovations officials long after his official retirement. The timing of your accident happening exactly when it did, where it did, feels like something he might have arranged from beyond the grave. Before Sophia could respond to this unexpected theory, the communication system announced the board's arrival. They made their way to the surface, emerging into the winter sunshine as the procession of vehicles arrived with precise choreography. James Chun, founder and chairman of Chun Innovations, emerged from the lead vehicle with the confident bearing of a man accustomed to history's spotlight. In his early 70s now, he nonetheless moved with energy and purpose, immediately approaching Emma with an extended hand. Miss Callahan, he greeted her warmly. I've been looking forward to meeting Daniel Callahan's daughter. Your father was an extraordinary man whose service can never be publicly recognized, but is deeply appreciated nonetheless. Thank you, Mr. Chun, Emma replied, finding herself unexpectedly moved by the personal acknowledgement of her father's work. I'm still learning about the full scope of his contributions. As are we all, the chairman responded with surprising candor. Your father understood something crucial about environmental stewardship, that systems require both innovation and preservation to function properly. The Genesis protocol he maintained struck that balance perfectly, ensuring accountability without compromising progress. The board visit included a tour of the renovated facility, a technical briefing on its current capabilities, and a private conversation between James Chun and Emma that touched on both historical water rights issues and future possibilities. Throughout the tour, Emma noted how the chairman paused at various points to share personal recollections of Daniel Callahan, stories that aligned with the journals Emma had been reading, but added dimensions only someone who had worked alongside her father could provide. As the visit concluded and the board prepared to depart, James Chun took a moment for a final private word with Emma. Your father once told me that the true strength of our environmental work lies not in its technologies, but in individuals willing to make difficult choices when necessary, he said, his expression reflecting decades of such choices. The decision to step in during that fire season when others would have driven past, that's the quality he most hoped would continue in his family line. With a firm handshake and a promise to remain personally engaged with the watershed facilities development, the chairman departed, leaving Emma standing beside Sophia as the motorcade disappeared down the private road. What happens now? Emma asked as they walked back toward the ranch house, where Blue waited patiently on the porch. Now you continue what your father started, Sophia replied. Maintaining this facility, preserving its historical significance, while adapting it to modern requirements. And ranching, of course, she added with a smile. The perfect cover operation hasn't changed since your father's day. Emma smiled at the characterization of her lifelong profession as a cover operation, though in truth the automated systems installed during the renovation had reduced the labor requirements significantly, allowing her to balance both responsibilities. And WaterCorp? She asked, referring to the organization whose operatives had nearly breached the facility during their attempt to secure the Genesis protocol. Significantly disrupted but not eliminated, Sophia admitted. Your father's documentation provided enough information to identify several key executives, But organizations like that are designed to survive leadership changes. They'll regroup eventually, possibly under a different name. Which means they might come looking for whatever else might be hidden here, Emma concluded, the implications clear. Precisely why we've integrated this site into the active research network rather than simply extracting the Genesis protocol and decommissioning it, Sophia confirmed. Site Watershed is now officially designated as a heritage site, one of only 3 Aquarius facilities being preserved for their historical significance while maintaining operational capabilities. As they reached the farmhouse, Emma's satellite phone chimed with an incoming message, a weather alert warning of a significant storm system developing to the west, potentially bringing record rainfall within the next 24 hours. Looks like I need to adjust the catchment systems, Emma noted, the practical concerns of ranching temporarily overshadowing corporate security considerations. Sophia smiled at this juxtaposition of the ordinary and the extraordinary that now characterized Emma Callahan's life. Your father would approve. He always maintained that growing food and guarding water resources were complementary responsibilities, both essential to a functioning ecosystem. That evening, after Sophia had departed and the heightened security presence had returned to its more discreet standard configuration, Emma sat on her porch watching distant lightning illuminate the approaching storm clouds. Blue dozed at her feet, occasionally twitching in dreams that likely involved chasing rabbits rather than corporate security concerns. On the table beside her lay her father's journal, open to an entry dated just days before his death. The faded handwriting remained clear despite the years. The ranch will pass to my daughter Emma. I've observed her closely during her search and rescue work. She has the Callahan qualities that matter most: integrity, responsibility, the instinct to help rather than harm. I believe when the time comes, she will make the right choice without needing to know why it matters. The Aquarius program may sleep, but it never truly dies. It waits for the right moment, the right person to awaken it once more. The approaching storm brought with it the scent of rain and renewal, a rancher's blessing after years of drought. Yet Emma knew it also symbolized the dual nature of her inheritance, the visible legacy of land and livelihood, and the hidden responsibility of secrets kept and revealed at the proper time. 6 months ago, she had been a struggling rancher. Facing foreclosure, her only concern the survival of her family's agricultural heritage. Today, she was both rancher and guardian caretaker of fields that fed people, and keeper of technology that could ensure water for generations to come. The unlikely journey that had begun with a simple act of compassion during fire season had transformed not just her circumstances, but her understanding of her place in the world. In rescuing what she thought was simply an injured hiker, Emma Callahan had found not just her family's hidden legacy, but her own purpose, continuing the essential work that happens in the spaces between official corporate history and lived environmental experience, where ordinary people make extraordinary choices that shape a region's future without ever appearing in its textbooks. And somewhere she felt certain, Daniel Callahan was nodding in approval. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.